I was there. I didn't hear these stories from strangers online. I didn't watch documentaries and build theories. I stood in rooms most people would run from. I repeated words I now regret. I followed people I thought had power. And for years, I believed darkness could give me everything life refused to give me. Money. Respect. Protection. Control. I thought I had found a hidden road that successful people secretly walk. But what I really found was fear. Chains. Sleepless nights. Voices in my own mind. And a kind of emptiness no amount of power could fill. Tonight, I'm going to tell you the truth. Not to glorify evil. Not to make darkness look mysterious. But to expose the lie I nearly died believing. Because if even one person watching this is standing where I once stood, then this confession is worth it. Stay with me until the end. Because the seventh ritual was the one that destroyed me. And what happened after changed my life forever. People see me now and assume I've always believed in God. They hear me speak about faith and think I must have grown up in church, reading scriptures, living clean, walking straight. That couldn't be further from the truth. I was angry long before I was spiritual. I was wounded before I was rebellious. I was searching before I was lost. I grew up in a house where love felt unstable. Some days were calm. Some days felt like war. There was shouting. Silence. Tension. Doors slamming. The kind of atmosphere where a child learns to stay alert all the time. I learned young that pain changes people. I watched adults pretend everything was fine while brokenness leaked through every room. And as I got older, I made a decision without realizing it. I would never be weak. I would never need anyone. I would never be the one getting hurt again. That vow became poison. Because pain that isn't healed becomes pride. And pride always attracts deception. Nobody joins darkness because it looks ugly. It approaches dressed as strength. Confidence. Mystery. Freedom. Control. When I was in my late teens, I met someone older than me. Sharp dresser. Calm voice. People respected him when he entered rooms. He always seemed connected. Money came easily to him. People feared him and admired him at the same time. I remember asking myself, why does he seem 10 steps ahead of everyone? He noticed my curiosity. That's how it starts. He never said, evil. He never said, worship darkness. He never said, destroy your life. He said things like, you're smarter than most people. You're meant for more. There are truths hidden from ordinary people. The world belongs to those who understand power. Those words hooked me. Because wounded people are vulnerable to flattery. And I was starving for identity. One night he invited me somewhere private. He said only serious people were allowed there. He said weak minds couldn't handle what they taught. That challenge alone made me want in. I arrived at a house far from the main road. No signs. No noise. Just a place that looked ordinary from the outside. But inside, everything felt calculated. Low lighting. Heavy silence. Eyes studying me. People who spoke softly but watched sharply. I remember feeling nervous. But I mistook nervousness for importance. That's another lie people fall for. Just because something feels intense doesn't mean it's valuable. They asked questions about my goals. My fears. My enemies. My desires. Then they said something I'll never forget. If you want ordinary results, live an ordinary life. I was young enough to think they were wise. So I stayed. Looking back, the biggest danger wasn't the room. It was the hunger inside me. I wanted success fast. I wanted revenge on people who underestimated me. I wanted to skip the slow process of healing, discipline, patience, and growth. I wanted shortcuts. Darkness feeds on shortcuts. Anything that promises reward without character should alarm you. Anything that offers power without responsibility is bait. Anything that tells you pain can be solved through domination is lying. But I didn't know that then. I only knew I was tired of feeling small. And people who feel small often chase dangerous things just to feel large. One of the first teachings I heard was this. Religion keeps people weak. They mocked prayer. They mocked humility. They mocked forgiveness. They mocked faith in Jesus Christ. They said morality was a cage. They said compassion was for losers. They said ruthless people inherit the world. And to a hurt young man carrying anger. That sounded logical. Because bitterness always prefers hard-hearted philosophies. When someone is bleeding emotionally, mercy can sound foolish. But hatred always charges interest. You may borrow strength from it for a season. Then it demands your peace in return. They loved secrecy. Everything was framed as hidden knowledge. You're learning what most people will never know. You're entering levels few can access. You're different now. That language creates addiction. It makes people feel chosen. Special. Above others. But secrecy can be used to inflate pride and hide manipulation. Truth doesn't need dramatic packaging. Real wisdom can survive daylight. Lies often require dim rooms. After that first gathering, I walked outside feeling powerful. Like I had entered a higher class of human beings. But later that night, alone in bed, something else happened. I felt uneasy. No reason. Just unease. A heaviness in my chest. A restlessness in my thoughts. I brushed it off. I told myself growth feels uncomfortable. I told myself greatness requires discomfort. But deep down, my conscience was speaking. And I silenced it. Never ignore the warning system inside your soul. They never ask for everything on day one. They ask for one step. Then another. Then another. Come to one meeting. Learn one principle. Keep one secret. Repeat one phrase. Trust one leader. Once someone normalizes small compromises, larger compromises become easier. That's true in every destructive path. Nobody wakes up wanting chains. They simply keep saying yes to links. My family noticed changes before I did. I became colder. More arrogant. Less patient. Quick to anger. Dismissive of anyone who disagreed with me. I started talking like I knew everything. I rolled my eyes at faith. I laughed at kindness. I admired intimidation. My mother once looked at me and said, "You're here, but you're not here anymore." I laughed when she said it. But her words stayed with me. Psychological control. Spiritual emptiness. A conscience fighting to be heard. And me, young enough to mistake intimidation for wisdom. Many destructive paths survive because people are too embarrassed to admit they were deceived. Don't let pride keep you trapped anywhere. Freedom often begins with the sentence, "I was wrong." If you are involved in anything that requires secrecy, fear, manipulation, or surrendering your judgment to a leader, be careful. Real truth does not fear questions. Real wisdom does not require intimidation. Real peace does not demand hidden chains. After the oath, they said I was ready for deeper knowledge. They introduced me to the second ritual called symbol worship, something they called protection. Objects. Symbols. We were taught to trust objects more than God. Certain symbols were treated like sources of power. People believed carrying them would bring protection, wealth, or influence. But objects cannot save anyone. I watched people depend on charms while their lives fell apart. They wore symbols on the outside, but inside they were empty. That's when I first began to question everything. They said these things would shield me and increase results. At first, I believed it. But what happened after I trusted those objects shook me deeply. Because the second ritual taught me a lesson I'll never forget. Anything you trust more than God will eventually disappoint you. One of the leaders pulled me aside after a meeting. He looked serious and said, "Now that you've entered deeper things, you need protection." That sentence alone created anxiety. Protection from what? Who was after me? What danger had suddenly appeared? Fear makes people easy to control. When someone first creates the threat, then sells the solution, be careful. I didn't know that then. I only knew I didn't want to be vulnerable. So I listened. He gave me a small object to carry. I won't glorify it by describing it in detail. Because the item itself had no true power. But at the time, I treated it like armor. I was told. Never leave home without it. Keep it hidden. Do not let others touch it. If you lose it, trouble may follow. Think about that. They weren't giving me freedom. They were giving me superstition. And I accepted it gladly. Soon I stopped making decisions normally. Before going somewhere, I checked if I had the item. Before meetings, I touched it. When something good happened, I credited it. When something bad happened, I wondered if I had used it wrong. That is how misplaced trust grows. Slowly. Quietly. Until your confidence is tied to something empty. Many people do this in different ways today. Not always symbols. Sometimes money. Sometimes status. Sometimes relationships. Sometimes routines. Anything you believe you cannot live without can become an idol. One afternoon, I rushed out of the house and forgot the item. Halfway through the day, I realized it wasn't with me. My heart started racing. I suddenly expected disaster. Every inconvenience felt like proof. Traffic delay. Because I forgot it. Argument with someone. Because I forgot it. Bad mood. Because I forgot it. Nothing had changed externally. Only my mind had. That's when I first saw how fear can manufacture chains. Years later I learned something simple. Real peace doesn't depend on carrying lucky objects. Real confidence doesn't require hidden charms. Real strength doesn't collapse because something stayed on a shelf. At that time though, I was blind. Because when deception becomes normal, truth can sound strange. Others in the group carried similar items. Some had multiple objects. Some never moved without them. Some panicked if one was misplaced. Some blamed every setback on forgetting a ritual step. I watched grown adults living in constant anxiety while calling it power. That contradiction should have woken me up. But when you're inside a system, insanity can feel normal. Later they introduced another object, this one tied to success and attraction. They said opportunities would come faster. People would favor me. Doors would open. I wanted success badly enough to believe anything. So I carried that one too. And for a while, coincidences made me think it was working. A call came through. A small opportunity opened. Someone treated me kindly. I credited the object. But I ignored the countless ordinary explanations. People often see what they're trained to see. The more I trusted objects, the less I trusted personal responsibility. Instead of discipline, I wanted shortcuts. Instead of growth, I wanted formulas. Instead of character, I wanted advantages. That mindset damages lives. Because success built on superstition collapses under pressure. You cannot replace integrity with symbols. You cannot replace work with charms. You cannot replace wisdom with rituals. My mother once found one of the items in my jacket. She asked what it was. I snatched it quickly and became defensive. That reaction alone exposed how attached I had become. Anything that makes you irrational when questioned may already control you. She said quietly. You're trusting the wrong things. I rolled my eyes. But her words pierced deeper than I admitted. Then came a season where nothing seemed to work. I carried the items. Repeated what I'd been taught. Did everything right. Yet problems increased. Stress increased. Sleep worsened. Anger deepened. Where was the protection? Where was the favor? Where was the peace? That was the beginning of doubt. And doubt can be the doorway to freedom when it questions lies. When I raised concerns, they never admitted failure. Instead they blamed me. They said, my faith was weak. My discipline was lacking. Enemies were resisting harder. I needed deeper commitment. Notice the pattern again. The system was never wrong. Only the follower. That keeps people trapped. Healthy truth can be examined. Manipulation always shifts blame downward. Outwardly, I acted committed. Inwardly, I was tired. Tired of pretending certainty. Tired of carrying fear. Tired of depending on objects that could not comfort me. Tired of chasing power while losing peace. Some of you watching know that fatigue. It comes when you've been living against truth too long. Your soul grows weary before your mouth admits it. Maybe your symbol isn't physical. Maybe it's something else you believe must save you. Popularita maneri vengiamija controla no third person. If losing it would destroy your identity, be careful. Only truth should hold that much weight in your life. Once they saw my questions growing, they said I needed a stronger experience. They said objects were only the beginning. Now I needed atmosphere. Initiation at night. Private gatherings after midnight where real power was accessed. I was curious again. Fearful, but curious. And curiosity without wisdom can lead people anywhere. What happened during those midnight ceremonies changed the atmosphere around my life completely. By the time they invited me to the midnight gatherings, I was already changing. My thinking had hardened. My peace was fading. My sleep was broken. But I still believed the answer was deeper involvement. That's another dangerous trap. When something is harming you, deception convinces you the cure is more of it. So when they told me the next level happened after midnight, which is the ritual number 3, midnight ceremonies, I said yes. I had no idea those nights would become some of the emptiest moments of my life. Real power moves at night. That's what they told me. They said ordinary people slept while serious people awakened hidden forces. They spoke about darkness as if it were wisdom. Mystery as if it were depth. Fear as if it were authority. And because I still equated intensity with truth, I believed them. I remember preparing that night like I was heading to something sacred. But I was really walking into deeper confusion. The gathering happened in a place farther from the city. Quiet road. Few lights. No signs. No noise except wind and distant dogs barking. Even before entering, the atmosphere felt heavy. Today I understand something simple. Environment can manipulate emotions. Silence. Darkness. Isolation. Strange sounds. All of it can make ordinary moments feel supernatural. But back then, I interpreted everything as power. The room was dimly lit. Faces half visible. Shadows on the walls. No one spoke casually. Everything was serious. Measured. Controlled. They wanted people unsettled. Because unsettled people become suggestible people. When your nervous system is activated, you're more likely to accept things without thinking clearly. That night I wasn't learning truth. I was being conditioned through atmosphere. At one point, the leader asked everyone to close their eyes. He spoke slowly. Told us to focus. To feel the room. To sense movement. Soon people started reacting. Some trembled. Some breathed heavily. Some whispered that they felt something. I wanted to feel something too. So I convinced myself I did. That's how group pressure works. People often experience what they expect to experience. Especially in charged environments. But then something happened no one else saw. I opened my eyes. Looked around the room. And suddenly I felt terrified. Not because something attacked me. Not because I saw monsters. But because I realized no one looked free. They looked dependent. Desperate. Hungry. Tense. Like people chasing something they could never catch. That image stayed with me. When the gathering ended, I stepped outside alone for air. The night was cold. Silent. And instead of feeling powerful, I felt empty. Deeply empty. The kind of emptiness noise cannot hide. I remember staring into the darkness and asking myself, if this is power, why do I feel worse every time? That question was dangerous. Because honest questions crack deception. So why didn't I leave then? Because I had invested too much pride. I had defended this path to others. I had mocked faith publicly. I had acted certain. To walk away would mean admitting I was wrong. And many people would rather suffer privately than repent publicly. Pride is expensive. It charges people years of unnecessary pain. After those midnight gatherings became regular, my thoughts changed. I became restless during the day. I felt irritable for no reason. Small things angered me. Peaceful moments felt uncomfortable. I always needed intensity. Drama. Conflict. Distraction. That's what darkness often does. It trains people to feel normal only in chaos. Then peace feels unfamiliar. I stopped enjoying simple things. Family meals. Quiet mornings. Laughter. Sunlight. Rest. Everything ordinary felt dull. That is tragic. Because healthy life is built from ordinary blessings. But when someone becomes addicted to intensity, they overlook peace. And peace is priceless. One night after returning home, I had a vivid dream. I was running through a house with no doors. Every hallway led to another hallway. Every room led nowhere. I woke up sweating. Heart racing. And the meaning hit me instantly. I was trapped in something that kept promising exits. I tried to shake it off. But deep down, I knew. My soul was warning me again. I mentioned my exhaustion to one of the leaders. He smiled and said, "That means transformation is happening. No compassion. No concern. Just another explanation designed to keep me in motion." That's when distrust quietly began. Because wise guides care about your well-being. Manipulators care about your compliance. Maybe you're not in dark gatherings. Maybe your midnight ritual is different. Maybe it's destructive habits after everyone sleeps. Maybe it's secret choices. Maybe it's the lifestyle you only live in the shadows. Hear me clearly. Anything that requires darkness to survive cannot produce light in your life. One night I came home late. The house was quiet. As I passed my mother's room, I heard her praying softly. She didn't know I was there. She was calling my name before God. Asking for protection. Asking for mercy. Asking for me to come back. I stood frozen in the hallway. Part of me felt angry. Part of me felt ashamed. Part of me wanted to cry. Because even in rebellion, love still reaches for you. I walked away pretending not to care. But those prayers were seeds. And seeds work underground long before you see growth. Soon after, they said I was ready for a stronger commitment. More serious. More binding. They called it sacrifice. Not the kind most people think of. But the surrender of conscience, pain, and loyalty through acts designed to deepen fear and commitment. I should have run. Instead, I leaned closer. Because broken people often mistake deeper damage for deeper meaning. What happened next pushed me further than I ever intended to go. And it left guilt on me I couldn't shake. There's a moment in many destructive paths when curiosity ends. And bondage begins. For me, that moment came when they said I was ready for a deeper commitment. They framed it as loyalty. Honor. Proof that I was serious. But it wasn't honor. It was manipulation through guilt and fear. Because when people want to control you, they often ask for something painful, so you'll feel too invested to leave. Ritual number 4, blood promises. Some people believed pain or sacrifice proved loyalty. Fear was used to pressure people into deeper commitment. Once someone crosses certain lines, shame keeps them trapped. That is how darkness works. First it invites you. Then it owns you. I carried guilt I couldn't explain. Nightmares became common. My mind felt heavy. I smiled in public. But I was collapsing in private. And it nearly broke me. If you want more, you must give more. That's what the leader said. He told me nothing valuable comes free. Then he added. Those who hesitate remain small. That sentence targeted the one weakness still ruling me. Pride. I hated looking weak. I hated appearing afraid. So whenever they challenged my courage, I moved closer to danger. Many young people fall this way. Not because they love darkness. But because they fear looking weak in front of the wrong people. They didn't want strength. They wanted surrender. Not healthy surrender to truth. But surrender of boundaries. Conscience. Independent thinking. Once someone crosses personal lines for a group, they become easier to control afterward. Because shame whispers. You've already gone this far. That whisper trapped me for a long time. The room was quieter than usual. No casual talk. No laughter. Only seriousness. I was told this was a turning point. That after tonight, doors would open. Favor would increase. Fear would leave. How many lies can be wrapped in promises? More than most people realize. I remember standing there pretending confidence. Inside, something in me wanted to run. But pride once again overpowered wisdom. I won't describe details to glorify any of it. What matters is this. That night I crossed personal lines I knew were wrong. And once I did, I changed immediately. Not externally. Internally. Because conscience doesn't disappear when ignored. It aches. I left that place carrying a weight no one could see. That's what shame feels like. Invisible, but heavy. I woke up feeling dirty inside. No shower could wash it. No distraction could erase it. No tough attitude could cover it. I looked in the mirror and barely liked the person staring back. Yet when people asked how I was doing, I answered. Good. That's how many people live. Broken inwardly. Polished outwardly. After that night, they leaned hard into one message. You belong with us now. They repeated that leaving would bring loss. That turning back would cost me everything. That no one outside would understand me anymore. Those are classic chains. Isolation. Fear. Identity capture. If someone convinces you that freedom is impossible, they don't need locks. Your mind becomes the cage. My anger worsened. I snapped at family. Distrusted friends. Withdrew from people who loved me. I felt constantly defensive. Even kindness irritated me. Because when guilt lives inside you, love can feel threatening. Love exposes what pride tries to hide. One afternoon she looked at me and said, "You're carrying something heavy." I instantly got angry. "What are you talking about?" She stayed calm. "I don't know what it is. But you're not at peace." That sentence pierced me because it was true. People who genuinely love you often see pain before you admit it. I stormed out. But her words followed me. You'd think shame would make someone leave. Sometimes it does the opposite. It makes them go back. Why? Because once people feel damaged, they may seek comfort from the very thing damaging them. That happens in addictions, toxic relationships, manipulative groups. You return hoping the source of pain can also be the source of relief. It almost never works. The nights got worse. Restless sleep. Heavy dread. Mind racing. Some nights I stayed awake just to avoid lying down with my thoughts. Because silence is hard when your conscience is speaking loudly. During the day, I acted bold. At night, I felt hollow. One evening I sat alone in my car after another meeting. Hands on the steering wheel. Engine off. Just sitting there. And for the first time, I admitted something out loud. I'm not becoming stronger. I'm becoming worse. That sentence terrified me. Because truth, once spoken, is difficult to bury again. Maybe your shame came from different choices. Maybe it's not rituals. Maybe it's hidden habits. Lies. Cheating. Bitterness. Self-destruction. Hear this carefully. Shame says you are trapped forever. Truth says you can still turn around. As long as you're breathing, change is still possible. When they sensed my weakness, they changed tactics. They introduced, ritual number 5, curses and control. We were told words could destroy others. People obsessed over revenge, jealousy, and domination. But hate always poisons the one holding it. I watched bitter people become paranoid people. I watched revengeful people become restless people. The darkness promised control, but created slavery. That was the beginning of my escape. Now they offered control. Not loyalty. Not belonging. Control over enemies. Control over outcomes. Control over people who hurt me. And if you're carrying pain, revenge can sound powerful. I was vulnerable enough to listen. That became the sixth descent. Because hate always disguises itself as justice. By this point, I was exhausted. I had entered looking for power. But what I carried now was fear, guilt, and inner chaos. That's when they introduced the next promise. Control. Control over people. Control over situations. Control over enemies. And if you've ever been hurt deeply, that temptation can feel stronger than people realize. Because wounded hearts often don't want healing first. They want revenge. That nearly destroyed me. You don't have to be the victim anymore. One leader said those exact words to me. He knew pieces of my past. He knew I carried anger from childhood. He knew I resented people who humiliated me. He knew I still replayed old pain in my mind. So he targeted the wound. That's what manipulators do. They study pain, then sell poison as medicine. He said. You can make people regret crossing you. That sentence ignited something dark in me. Because bitterness loves the fantasy of payback. Revenge gives hurting people an illusion. If they suffer, I'll finally be free. But pain transferred is not pain healed. Someone else's suffering cannot repair your soul. I didn't know that then. I only knew I was tired of feeling like the one who lost. So when they offered rituals centered on control and retaliation, I listened. They trained us to interpret everything as conflict. If someone ignored you, they disrespected you. If someone succeeded, they threatened you. If someone criticized you, they became an enemy. If someone left your life, they betrayed you. That mindset is toxic. Because once you see enemies everywhere, peace disappears everywhere. I became suspicious, reactive, defensive. Not strong. Unstable. I obsessed over people who hurt me. Replayed conversations. Imagined them failing. Imagined them begging. Imagined myself finally winning. But while I imagined controlling others, I was being controlled by anger. That is the great irony of revenge. You think it empowers you while it occupies you. I saw someone from my past one afternoon. Someone who once embarrassed me publicly. Years earlier I would have avoided them. Now I wanted them to suffer. That thought shocked me. Because it didn't feel like me. Or maybe it had become me. I smiled politely outwardly. Inside, I felt hatred rising. And hatred always asks for more room once welcomed. My stress increased. Jaw tight. Headaches. No patience. Always tense. Always alert. Even alone, I couldn't relax. That's because bitterness doesn't only affect thoughts. It affects the body. The nervous system. The ability to rest. People think revenge punishes others. Often it punishes the host first. My mother confronted me again. One evening she said, "You look angry all the time." I snapped back immediately. "You don't know anything." She answered softly. "No, but I know peace when it leaves someone." That sentence hit hard. Because peace had left me. And everyone close enough could see it. Everyone except me. Or maybe I saw it and refused to admit it. At another gathering, I asked one of the leaders something honest. If all this power works, why do so many people here look miserable? He stared at me longer than usual. Then said, "Growth is uncomfortable. Same script. Same deflection. But this time it didn't satisfy me. Because once your eyes begin opening, recycled lies stop working." That was the beginning of my internal break from them. That night I went home and sat in darkness without music, phone, or distraction. Just silence. And I asked myself questions I had avoided for years. Why am I more angry now than before? Why am I less peaceful now than before? Why do I need rituals to feel safe? Why do I feel empty after every gathering? Why do I keep pretending this is helping me? Those questions were painful. But honest pain can heal more than dishonest comfort. To the person watching. Maybe revenge is your ritual. Maybe you don't attend secret meetings. Maybe you just feed resentment daily. Replay wounds. Dream of payback. Secretly celebrate when others fail. Hear me clearly. Bitterness chains the carrier first. Forgiveness does not excuse wrong. It releases your future from being tied to the wound. When they sensed distance growing in me, they intensified one tactic called ritual number 6, mocking God. This was the most dangerous mindset. We were taught to mock faith, mock prayer, mock Jesus Christ, and treat holiness as weakness. But something strange kept happening. The people who mocked God the loudest seemed the most tormented. I realized confidence can be fake. Arrogance often hides fear. And deep down, I was afraid too. They said only weak people need God. Only broken people pray. Only fools repent. I laughed with them outwardly. But inwardly something strange happened. I wanted to pray. Not perform. Not chant. Not pretend. Pray. That desire scared me. Because it meant part of me still believed light existed. And darkness hates even the smallest spark of hope. Then came the final ritual. The one that broke me completely. Ritual number 7, total surrender to darkness. This ritual was about giving everything over. Your mind. Your future. Your identity. After that night, I felt emptier than ever before. I reached the lowest point of my life. No peace. No sleep. No joy. No confidence, only performance. I had chased power and lost myself. That was the night I whispered a desperate sentence I never thought I'd say again. God, if you are real, help me. And what happened next changed everything. I didn't say it like a ritual. I didn't say it like a formula. I said it like a drowning man. And what came next wasn't fear. It wasn't chaos. It wasn't darkness. It was peace. It didn't arrive like lightning. It didn't announce itself. It didn't feel dramatic. It felt like silence inside my mind for the first time in years. The weight I had carried, guilt, fear, anger, confusion, didn't vanish instantly. But it loosened. Like chains no longer locked tightly around me. And I realized something I had never understood before. Peace is not something you manufacture. It's something you receive when you stop fighting truth. The next steps were simple, but costly. I walked away from everything tied to that life. No dramatic confrontation. No final ceremony. Just a decision. I stopped returning. I stopped participating. I stopped feeding what was destroying me. And slowly, clarity began returning. Sleep improved. My thoughts became quieter. My anger started fading. It wasn't instant perfection. It was healing. For the first time in a long time, I started thinking clearly again. Not driven by fear. Not driven by control. Not driven by revenge. I began reading again, this time not for power, but for truth. And I kept encountering one message over and over. Light is stronger than darkness. Truth sets people free. And Jesus Christ is not about control, he is about restoration. That truth didn't just inform me. It rebuilt me. I'm not telling you this story to sound dramatic. I'm not telling you this to glorify anything I left behind. I'm telling you this because I know how deception works. It rarely looks dangerous at first. It starts with curiosity. Then identity. Then pride. Then dependency. And by the time people realize it's harming them, they feel too deep to leave. But listen to me clearly. No matter how far someone has gone, they are never too far to come back. If you're watching this and struggling, maybe your situation isn't like mine. But maybe you still feel trapped in something. Anger you can't let go of. Habits you can't break. Secrets you carry alone. Pressure you don't know how to escape. Hear this. You are not beyond help. You are not beyond change. You are not beyond grace. The same way I found my way out, there is a way out for you too. Anything that promises power but steals your peace. Anything that gives control but removes freedom. Anything that demands secrecy, fear, or isolation should be questioned deeply. Because real truth does not enslave. It liberates. If this story reached you, don't ignore it. Think about where you are. Think about what is shaping your thoughts. Think about what is influencing your direction. And choose wisely. Because every path leads somewhere. If you want more true, powerful stories like this, stories about transformation, darkness, and redemption, subscribe to this channel. And turn on the notification bell, so you don't miss the next story when it drops. Because some stories entertain. But some stories are meant to wake people up. John 8 verse 36. So if the Son sets you free, you will be free indeed. God bless you and grant all your heart desires in Jesus Christ's name, amen.